Hi, everyone. In today's Metafield educational series, we're going to be talking about delivery. Delivery is important because it has to do with your reports, and the ultimate goal is to get your reports out the door and delivered quickly and efficiently. So in today's demonstration, we're going to be talking about a number of things. Number one, we're going to be talking about really what a report actually is inside of Metafield and how that differentiates between the data that's inside of Metafield. We're also going to be talking about some workflow recommendations and some best practices to become efficient when managing reports in the system. We'll also talk about some newer enhancements that we've introduced that kind of help benefit your delivery of the reports themselves as well too. So to begin, what we're going to do is I'm actually going to go into the help screen. So for those of you that are following along with us, if you wanted to jump into Metafield, you could do the same thing. But where I'm going to go is I'm going to go into the upper right hand corner of my screen. I'm going to click my profile and I'm going to go ahead and click the help screen. Now, some of you might be aware of these diagrams, but where I'm going to go is I'm going to navigate down a little bit and I'm going to go ahead and click Metafield Process Overviews. These are really, really helpful to really kind of understand different terminology that the system uses inside of Metafield. So what I'm going to do to start off with, though, is I'm going to go ahead and the one that we're going to focus on today is life cycle of a report. So I'm going to go ahead and click this one, and I'll blow the diagram up here. This diagram looks a little bit more intimidating than it actually is. Really, for this demonstration, I only need you to focus on the parts that are in yellow, because those three words right there, we have complete, final, and delivered. Those are the three different statuses of a report within Metafield. All of the other diagrams and boxes and colors that you see on the screen right now, those are just different areas of the system where data is collected and really where a report could be generated from. But once that report actually is generated, it's going to be given a status. And the status of that is important because really it's going to help you answer two questions that I always like to ask myself when I'm dealing with reports. And those questions are, what reports do I need to sign and what reports do I need to deliver? So if you look here, we have complete and final. Now those sound a little bit synonymous of each other, but if you look right above each one, there is a little dotted box, and the only difference between the statuses there, between complete and final, are if they've been digitally signed or not. So if you have a report that's in complete status, it simply means that it is missing a digital signature. And that might be okay. There might be reports that you don't need to apply a signature to. Now, for reports where you do need to apply a signature to, or maybe even a seal, the moment that you sign that report, the status of it is going to change to final. That's the only difference between the status there. It's if it has a signature or if it doesn't. Now, what those two statuses have in common, more importantly, is the fact that they are not delivered, right? That third status that we have is delivered. Well, you're probably not going to be as worried about reports that you've already delivered. Those are done. You can kind of wash your hands clean of those, hopefully. But more importantly, complete and final, those are the outstanding reports. So actually, if I could draw a little line between the two right now, I'd write the words not delivered between the two, because those are the ones that you still need to manage and get out the door. So that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. So to begin, though, what we need to do is we really need to understand what a report is in the system and how it differentiates between the data itself. So what I'm going to do now, though, is I'm going to go into Metafield and I'm going to pretend to kind of be a project manager. So if I'm starting my day and my responsibility is to maybe do some review and eventually get some reports out the door, I'd probably start in the dashboard. So that's where I'm going to go. So when I open up the dashboard here, there's a lot going on, but using your filters, using your tools here to kind of navigate and pinpoint a certain thing that you're looking for, it's going to help kind of fast track your daily duties. So in this example, where I'm going to start, though, is I'm going to kind of pretend here that I have a couple of density tests that I need to do some review on. So we're not going to go into too much detail in terms of what these statuses mean today, because that kind of that's more directed towards the data. And today we're putting a primary focus on the actual reports and getting those out the door. But either way, what we have here is I'm highlighting a status called analyze. And again, this is the data right now. We want to put an emphasis when we're creating reports, we want to put an emphasis of review on the data, not the actual deliverable. And that might be a change for some of you that are listening to this. We might be used to actually doing a review on maybe a piece of paper that's also our deliverable. That changes with the system now. When you're working with data, you have the opportunity to do reviews in batch. You can do searches and queries. That's much more efficient than, say, sifting through a stack of papers to do edits and all of a sudden having those become your deliverables as well. So whenever you need to make changes to things, you want to kind of have the mindset that you're going to be changing and reviewing the data, because when you create the report, you've already done the review. So when you create the report, it's simply just, for the most part, two things left to do. That's potentially sign it, and it's potentially just sending it off to the client. So anyway, like I was saying, what we're going to do is we're going to get back to it. I'm going to pretend that I just need to do some review of some density tests. Now you'll see up here too, I have some filters that I can work with. If there's a lot of noise out there, if I want to put my name here as a project manager to help reduce the amount of noise, I can do that. For this case though, I can already see my project just from simply working in the system previously. I'm going to go ahead and click this one right here. I want to work with the Shady Ridge Hospital. You can see there's a count of 2 next to it. So what this is telling me is I have 2 brand new density tests in the system, but it's just data right now. We haven't done anything with the report yet. So again, I'm going to keep saying that. I'm going to say we want to do review of the data. So let's go ahead and click this. The other thing before we do it, I want you to watch up here. You can see I'm in the dashboard right now, but when I open up this project, you're going to see that change. So when I click this button, now all of a sudden in the upper left-hand corner, you can see that I'm now in quality control. Quality control is going to be your headquarters for the data. Think of it as your data repository. We're going to get to delivery here shortly. Delivery is going to be more of your report repository, where you can kind of manage signatures and manage the actual delivery of the report. So it is separate from the data. If you want to do reviews and edits at the data level, it's going to be here in quality control. So we'll get to delivery in just a moment. But here you can see again, I came through the dashboard, I was highlighted on Analyze, and it told me I had 2 density tests to do a review on. And here they are right here. The other thing, if you look up here, you can see that I'm being filtered for an Analyze status. That's because I came through the dashboard. The dashboard is going to kind of help tunnel you to the correct project, and it's going to filter you for what you've selected on. Now, if you watch this real quick, I am going to hit clear on my filters. So if I hit clear, you can see that there actually are more tests within this project, but the 2 at the top there, tests 1 and 2, those are complete. Again, we're going to be talking about workflows here to help reduce the amount of noise that you've already completed or already delivered. That's a good thing, because you might be on a job that has lots and lots of data or lots and lots of reports. So by using your filters here, you're going to help reduce the amount of noise. So I'm going to go back up and I'm going to reapply the analyzed filter. So again, what I'm trying to do at this point is to do review. Now, whenever I say review, again, I always want to put the emphasis on reviewing the data, because that's where I can make the changes. So what we're going to quick do is I'm going to say, all right, I'm going to look at test 3 here. So I'm going to go ahead and click edit. Now, when I click edit, what I'm brought to, this is kind of the bird's eye view of this specific test. And I can certainly go ahead and make my changes and edits to this, whatever I need to clean up. Once I'm done with that, I can kind of come down here and just hit save. I can cancel out of it too if I didn't make any changes, kind of the same thing. So that's one way to do it. Now, another way is you can actually do a batch select. So if you wanted to grab a number of density tests here to do a batch edit, you can select them. And you're brought to this screen here where, maybe the location has changed. So you could pick a different location. The other thing here is that sometimes it's missed, but these little arrows at the top, you can actually populate for an entire column. It's kind of giving me a little bit of a warning that things are going to change, and that's okay. So you can see how both of those changed. But I'm going to call that good. I've done my review. So again, what we want to shift focus on now is whenever we think about review, some of us might be used to doing review of an actual piece of paper or an actual report that might be the deliverable at the same time. Metafield is changing that. When you're working with data, this is what you can change, right? We can do searches, we can do batch, different types of changes, that thing. It's going to help expedite your review. So I just did a batch change. Now I can hit save. So I've done my review. I realize we haven't seen the actual deliverable yet, and that's okay. There is going to be a time where it might even be a thing of growing some comfort with the deliverable, and that's okay. We're going to show you different ways to view the report as well before you send that out. But for me, I want to try to put an emphasis on just doing the data, because the report, once we actually generate that, that's going to be the same every single time, at least the aesthetics of it. Now, what's going to change on the report is the data, right? So if you can focus your time and energy on reviewing the data to make sure that that is good, you know that your report is going to be the same every single time. That's what we want to get to. So I've done my review. I'm going to call that good. Okay, I've done my review of the data here in quality control. So what do I do next? Well, what I would encourage is a workflow. So I'm going to say these two density records are done. We've done the review. So we're now going to click change status, and I'm going to flip this over to complete, just to tell the system that, yes, I've done my review. Now, before I do this, what I want to draw attention to, though, is that if you look here, the analyze status filter is still there. That's a good thing, because we're about to create a workflow for ourselves. So when I change the status to complete, what we're going to see here is the system is going to ask if I want to finalize a report. And we're going to do that in just a second. But the other thing, if you notice down here, you can see the two density test records that I had selected, they're now gone. Again, that's a good thing, because we're maintaining our filter up here of analyze, and we change the status to complete. So what we're kind of doing here is we're getting our results table down to 0. Because with a filter maintained, remember this filter right here is kind of showing us what's still outstanding, stuff that needs to be reviewed. Well, if my results are at 0, then I'm done. I've done my review. So now it's just a matter of generating the report, because the report is going to consist of the data that you've reviewed. Okay. So what we're going to do now is let's hit finalize, and we'll move along here. And I'm not going to sign this particular report. I could if I wanted to. In other words, I create a report and I sign it. It's going to go off to delivery. I'm actually going to show you a couple ways where we can do a batch signature here shortly. Okay, but remember, if I were to sign this report that I'm creating right now, if we go back, it's going to have the status of final. If I don't sign it, it's going to have the status of complete. There is not a right or wrong option here. It's up to the workflow that you want to kind of implement. And we'll be able to track that report in delivery here shortly. So for right now, I'm not going to sign it. I'm just going to flip that guy to no, and we're going to hit finalize. So now what the system did right there, it happened very quickly, but it created a PDF. We didn't see that. Reports, when you generate in Metafield, are PDFs. You can't change those. You can change the data. So if there was an issue with the report that I generated, well, really the goal is that, or the hope I should say, is that it was caught when we were doing the review just moments ago, okay? Now, again, what we've done there is we no longer have any results to work with, because I'm still filtered for analyze. The records that we worked with, they've disappeared. Again, that's okay. They didn't actually disappear. If I hit clear, they're right there, but they're just in completed status. But again, I've already generated the report, and my focus for me, if I was a project manager, I would do my review in quality control, and I would generate reports and just push them all off to delivery. And I'll explain why in a little bit. But that's the idea. Again, quality control is your headquarters for data. And this is where you're going to want to put an emphasis on review. If you can do your review thoroughly on the data and not necessarily the report or the aesthetics, you're going to save yourself a lot of time. Now, if you want to see the aesthetics of the report here from quality control, you can. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just another little step that might add some time. So if I wanted to see maybe what the report might look like, I can certainly select the two density records and just kind of quick do a preview of it. So here it is right here. This is basically the report that I just created and pushed off to delivery. However, this is just a preview of it, but it consists of the data, and I can even zoom in a little bit. It consists of the data inside of these records. So again, you can kind of start to understand why right here, if you look at the dry density, if there's an error right there, I can't necessarily change the PDF. So it's best for me to actually catch the error when I'm doing the review, because if I'm looking at the PDF and I see the issue, I have to go back to the data anyway to make that change. So there it would be right there. That might be the error. I might have to manipulate this a little bit, make the change, and then generate a new report. So again, there's nothing wrong with looking at the PDF, the actual deliverable, but it's only going to consist of the data that you've already reviewed. So the idea is to put the emphasis on review right here. Okay. So now that we've generated a report, where did that report go? Well, again, it went off to delivery. So that's where we're going to start to go now, because this really is where we kind of get into the main portion of this demonstration. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to jump all the way back out to the beginning, and we're going to show you a couple of different ways to get to delivery. Again, there isn't really a right or wrong way. It just depends on your workflow. So for the most part, what we're going to do, at least for, I should say, to start off with, we're going to go into the dashboard again. Now, when we go to the dashboard, you can see over here on the left-hand side, there's actually going to be basically a little tab here called delivery. Well, if you look at this, you have two different statuses. Now, what we're seeing here, again, I don't have any filters applied, but if I'm just focused on the information for myself as a project manager, maybe I put my name here. So if I run a search, you'll be able to see there's a lot less noise that I have to worry about versus the global level. So here is the project that I'm working on. So we have 9 reports in completed status and 4 reports in final status, okay? What do those mean again? Well, let's look at our diagram, right? So here we have complete. Remember, it says if unsigned, and then we have final. That means if digitally signed. So what we just walked through moments ago in quality controls, we did review data and we generated a report. Now, when I say that, when I say finalize report or generate report, the idea again is that the review is done. So when you cross that threshold of creating a report, the deliverable, the review is done. And really the goal, it's not always the case, but the goal is for really only 2 things left to be done. That's 1, potentially sign it, but 2, deliver it. So once you create that report, that's kind of why we use that terminology, complete and final, because everything else for the most part is done. You just have to, again, maybe sign it, and 2, deliver it. So there we have complete and final, and we have complete and final. Now, note right here, though, there's no count for delivered. Why is that? Well, again, delivered reports are probably already done. You don't necessarily need to worry about those as much. Those aren't outstanding reports. Those have already been sent off, hence the status called delivered. So we don't need to worry about those. The ones we do need to worry about are the ones that haven't been delivered. So again, that's why I kind of like to say that these two, their common denominator, so to speak, would be not delivered, okay? So that's what we're looking at here. Now, if we did this, if I click this job right here, again, it's showing I have 9 reports that are ready to go but haven't been signed. I can go ahead and click that, and all of a sudden, now if you look at the top, the last time we did that, when we were brought to quality control, but this time we're brought to delivery. Now again, delivery is your report repository. It's kind of your headquarters for your deliverables, your PDFs. Quality control is your repository, so to speak, for the data. That's where you're going to do your review. Once you have records here, these are your PDFs. Again, you hopefully just have two things left to do, and that's potentially one, just sign it, and two, potentially deliver it. So you can kind of see how the dashboard kind of tunneled me here to delivery. Now, once again, though, if you look, because I came through the dashboard, you can also see that it pre-populated me here for complete status. These are the ones that are not signed. So you can even look right here, the signed by column, it's empty because these are all in completed status if you look right here, okay? Now again, I could hit clear on this and clear all my filters. And if we scroll on down, it looks like we have 16 reports in total for this job, okay? We'll get to kind of how to manage this in a little bit. So the other way though, to get to delivery, and like I said, there isn't a right or wrong way. But the other way to get to delivery, the first way we just came through, right, was the dashboard. Whether you're highlighting for complete or final, this is showing you what's still outstanding. But you could actually just go straight to delivery. So if I just simply clicked delivery here, and I actually kind of prefer this, but again, this is just based on my workflow. But the reason I kind of prefer this is that if I'm a project manager, I could populate my name right here, but also I could filter for things like not delivered and not signed. And those are actually my two favorite filters when working in delivery, because it helps me answer the two questions that I like to ask myself each and every time I'm in delivery. And those two questions are, what reports do I need to sign and what reports do I need to deliver? So actually, if we go ahead and do that, if we select delivery status, not delivered, and if we choose to select signed status as in not signed, that's going to answer those two questions for me. So if I run a search on this, this immediately will show me all of the jobs that basically have those outstanding reports. Now, the other reason I kind of like to come in through this way is that you may already know this, and maybe some people don't, but you can actually work in delivery across multiple jobs. So I'm actually going to select two of them right here and click open. Now here, all of a sudden, if you look at the top, I'm now managing two jobs at once. But at the same time right here, I also have my filters maintained. I have not delivered and not signed. So this is showing me all the reports right here that are still outstanding. If we scroll all the way to the bottom, let's take a look at this. We have 67 reports. If you follow my cursor right there, we have 67 reports that have not been signed and have not been delivered. That's not that many, but if we scroll back up, and let's actually hit clear on our filters here for just a moment. If we get rid of our two filters, now let's see how many reports there are. Look at that, there's 564. That's a lot more than we were just seeing, which means to me, that's a lot of noise. But what we're doing with that is we're weeding out the reports that are essentially done. They've already been sent off to the client. You can see there's a couple right here that are in delivered status, right? We're not as worried about reports that are in delivered status because they're done essentially. So when I'm working inside of delivery here, these are my two favorite filters: delivery status, not delivered. Again, why is that probably my favorite status? Because if we look at our diagram one more time, again, I like to kind of say the common denominator, or what's synonymous between complete and final, is not delivered. So by leveraging this filter right here, it's going to show me all of the reports that are either in complete status or final. Again, if you look at follow my cursor right here underneath the status column, not a single one of these reports are going to show up as delivered. Just show me the ones that are still outstanding. And the system will accomplish that for you by applying this filter. It's an excellent filter, and it's my favorite one in delivery. Now over here, we have the signed status. You also have the status, right? There's complete, final, and delivered. So if you did want to search specifically for one of these, you certainly can. But I actually like this one a little bit more. So again, I sound like a broken record a little bit, but whenever I'm in delivery, I like to ask myself the question, what reports do I need to sign and what reports do I need to deliver? So simply by applying these two filters, it accomplishes that. So in other words, what I can do right now is I can say, all right, well, if it's my job to manage these reports and sign them and get them out the door, this is how we do it. Now, when I'm taking this approach, remember though, that we've already done the review of the data. So hopefully when we get to this point, we're just managing basically the signing of the reports and the delivery of the reports. Now, if you wanted to, you certainly could come over here and click this icon, and you could look at the aesthetics of the report, and that's okay. If you catch an error here, you have to go back to quality control and manage the data and generate a new report, because a report is kind of a picture in time. It takes a picture of the data at the time you generate this report. You can't really change a picture. So we'd have to go back to quality control. So that's why I keep putting an emphasis on the review of the data, not necessarily the aesthetics of the report. So hopefully we can get there. But again, if you wanted to, you certainly could look at the report right here in delivery as well. That's totally okay. So what we're going to do though is, again, I come into delivery, I'm asking myself the question, what reports do I need to sign? What reports do I need to deliver? So if I wanted to now, what I could do is, if I wanted to first sign my reports, I can actually do this in a batch manner. So if I wanted to, let's actually quick take a look down here, because I want to kind of talk about the workflow again. So here we're sitting at 67 reports, right? We have 67 reports that have not been signed and have not been delivered. So let's say also now, before I maybe go home today, I want to do this quickly and efficiently, and I have to sign all of these reports. Well, I'm just going to grab a couple right off the bat. Let's just grab these ones right here. And what I'm going to quick do is I'm going to hit the sign button. So I do have these reports configured for digitally signing. That is a report type configuration. If anybody's struggling with that, or if you get a prompt that you can't sign this report, if you don't know the answer, go ahead and reach out to our support or one of your solutions consultants. We can help you with that. But I believe these ones are configured to handle signatures. So I'm actually going to go ahead and click sign. And it works. Okay. So what we're going to do now is I'm actually going to put in my AgileStamp username and password. And note, I'm only doing this once. Okay. So kind of before I click sign here, what I want to kind of talk about again is a workflow. If you remember, when we were in quality control and we were reviewing a density test, it was an analyzed status. And when we completed our review, we changed the status of those data records from analyzed to complete, and they disappeared on us. And that was a good thing, because we maintained our filters, right? We create a workflow for ourselves. So what I'm going to do right here is, when I click sign, we're actually going to see these 4 reports disappear, right? Because up at the top of my screen, I know it's hidden right now, but at the top of my screen, I'm filtering for not signed. So when I sign them, they're going to go away. So let's give this a shot here. So we can say, okay, what signature do we want to apply? It might be my seal, might just be my standard signature. I can pick based on the configuration, and I'll go ahead and click OK. So I'm batch signing reports here. This is a really big advantage, because I know I only have 4 selected, but maybe I actually had 50. So by only doing this once, it's a lot more efficient than having to do create a report, sign the report, create the report, sign the report. So by doing this in a batch manner, it's much more efficient. It takes a little bit of time when you're doing multiple reports, but it's so much faster to do it in a batch manner. So it just tells me that I've signed them successfully. And you can see they actually disappeared, right? Because I'm maintaining my filter for not signed. So let's quick scroll down one more time. Look right here. If you remember, the last time we looked at that, it was at 67. Now we're down to 63. That's the workflow. So eventually what we want to do, I'm not going to do every single one of these reports here, but eventually what we want to try to do is get down to 0, because when you are filtering for not delivered and not signed, the moment you sign all of your reports here and you're at 0, you've signed all of your outstanding reports. So then once you do that, now all of a sudden you can flip this guy over to signed. And now you can say, okay, show me all the reports that I have signed but have not delivered. So it really starts to create a workflow for yourself. It's really, really nice. Now, the other thing, remember too, is I'm managing within 2 projects right now. Maybe it's 5 projects, maybe it's 10. Think about signing multiple reports across multiple jobs all at once and potentially how much time you can get back in your day by doing that. So very, very advantageous. So again, you can kind of see why eventually by filtering this and signing all of these, eventually all of these records are going to disappear because of my filters. Again, they don't actually disappear, right? It's just filtering. But the idea now is once you go through that kind of simulation, then you can flip this to signed and we can run a search. So what this is going to show you now, and you can even see, look right there, we have a signed by column, and we also have a status column over there as well. And that status column says final. Remember, that basically means right then and there that we've already signed it. So the complete status basically means not signed. The final status, that does mean signed. Okay. So at this point, all that we're ready to do is basically send these out because we're filtering for signed and we're filtering for not delivered. So show me everything. That really the last step I need to do is just send them off to the client. So before we do that, what we want to do is quick come down here and let's look at our count. Because again, I'm all about demonstrating a workflow. Now, what this is showing me here though, is we have 155 reports that have been signed but have not been delivered. Now that's a lot. However, again, we're also working across multiple jobs, okay? So when it comes to emailing though, you do want to kind of manage one particular job at a time because they might actually have different distribution lists, and that's okay as well. So let's do this. Just again, what we're going to do is we're going to jump back out here, and we'll go back to that in just a second. But let's just take a look at the dashboard one more time. Once again, you can kind of see how these counts have changed for this particular job. So we have complete. Again, those are reports that really the last thing I have to do is just potentially sign and deliver. But also here, the one with final, I have 8 of them in here. That means they've been signed. They just need to be sent off to the client. So we're back to this screen. However, this time, yep, I'm just within 1 job. Last time I was within 2 jobs. When you're actually delivering reports, you do want to try to stick to just to one particular project, just simply because they might have different distribution lists. But either way, what we're going to do now is we're going to actually deliver these reports, okay? So we're going to talk about workflow again. So what I like to do is I like to come into the screen and I'm going to filter for not delivered. And I might filter for signed, I might filter for not signed. I guess that would depend if maybe for a certain job, if you do need to apply a digital signature for every single report for that job, then yes, maybe you would filter for signed. If not, maybe there are certain reports that you don't need to sign. Maybe that doesn't matter and you can just kind of leave that one as off. But this is your key one right here, right? Not delivered. So now what we can do though, now we can start to manage the delivery of these reports, but the same workflow applies. So let's quickly come down here. We have 8 reports to send out. Well, if I needed to, I could grab all of them or maybe a couple at a time, click the email button, and here are my reports. I will say this, and we'll cover this just a little bit. You can see that there is a message here. You can control this from an administrative perspective. If you want to have kind of a pre-canned message that goes out to your clients. Actually, we might as well show you right now. So I'm going to stay on the screen. Let's jump into administration. And we're going to go underneath reports here. Let's go to global settings. And this is what we have. We have a message. You can even see right here, if you hover your cursor over this little black eye icon, it's going to give you a little cheat sheet on how to configure what we call these dynamic placeholders. So you can see it doesn't actually say project number in blue. It's just typed with double brackets. And this message right here is what is displaying right here. So there's the actual job number. So it's pretty handy to have that kind of canned message display. That's what's going to be in the email that goes out to your clients. So the other thing here is that we're probably not going to go too much into the actual distribution list today, but you can see if you had configured at the project specs level, your recipients are going to show up. If you wanted to, you could certainly add somebody on the fly if they're missing from the distribution list. But what I'm just going to quick do is I'm actually going to hit send. Okay, so when I hit send, again, what I want you to kind of notice in the background is that all of the reports that I've selected are going to disappear. So if we click send, they're all gone. Why did that happen? Well, again, we changed the status. It's all about that workflow with the maintain filter. So right now we're filtering for not delivered. When you email reports with the system will recognize that you're delivering them. So if I flip this back to delivered, let's see here, oops, I'm still filtered for final. Gotta clear that one. There we go. So here are my reports. However, if you look, now the status of these reports have changed to delivered. The system recognizes that we emailed them, so it does that for me automatically. So when I just did that and I got to 0 outstanding reports, so if I flip this back to not delivered, if you look at this, well, it looks like I got a couple left. That's because they're in complete status. So maybe we send those ones off real quick too. Let's do this one more time. Well, maybe we pretend these are ones that don't necessarily need signatures. So let's do the same thing. We're down to 0. So now when I'm filtering for this, now it's telling me that I don't have any more reports that are in not delivered status. I'm done. This project is up to date. Those reports didn't actually disappear, right? They're still here, but they're just in delivered status. So by using these two filters, again, these are my favorite. They help you create that workflow to capture what's outstanding in terms of what reports you need to sign and also what reports you need to deliver. It's really, really handy. Now, again, the reports don't actually disappear. If we scroll on over here, let's just take a look at this, because again, this might be something that not everybody is aware of, but there's what we call an email log. This really is kind of your source of truth in terms of who's received reports and when potentially. So if I click this email log, you can see that I had sent this off to Carl and Joel, okay? Now I can even click on this, and if we expand on it, you can see the subject line, the actual message to it as well. Now, if for instance, if I'm looking at this and I realize I may have missed somebody on the distribution list, what I can quick do is I can actually email an already delivered report. So if that's the case, I can just simply click email. Maybe I save these to some spam, but if I click email, and let's just add an email here. So go ahead and click add, and we're going to send this one off. Okay, so I just re-delivered an already delivered report. That's okay. That might be the case if you have a client ask for a report, 2 years after the job. You can still locate that. It's going to be in the system and just send it off to them. Now, in terms of the email log, though, if we click this, now you can see that, yep, Brad here sent off reports to Carl and Joel around 11:35, but it looks like we sent another one at 11:38, and this was the message here too. So every time you deliver a report, you're going to have an email log, a trace of history of when that was sent off to your clients and also who. So that email log, again, it's very, very handy in terms of kind of your source of truth. Okay. So what I want to talk about now are some new enhancements to the system. One of the things that's been very, very valuable is to be able to control a subject line. In other words, what is basically the subject line in an email message that's going to go out to your clients? Well, if you see this, if we click email, once again, we have the message. That's going to be the message that goes out to the client. But what about the subject line? Well, it's actually going to be controlled on the administrative side of things. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stay on this tab. Let's go back. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into administration. And we're going to go ahead and click reports. I believe we were here not too long ago, but let's go ahead and click global settings. And right here, you can see you have a subject line. And once again, it's configurable with this little black information icon. If you put your cursor over that, it's going to give you a little cheat sheet. So if you wanted to say, something like that right there. It says reports regarding project name, project number. The system will auto insert that. Now, the difference there between field and non-field, the field subject line, that's in case if you have field technicians sending maybe preliminary reports off to clients, you can kind of manipulate the subject line from them. The non-field subject line, that refers for the most part to delivery. So those are really, really handy, okay? The other thing that you can potentially do down here, you can configure the type of document or the way the report is delivered to the client. It can either be an attachment or a link. So that's configured here as well. I think most people like receiving PDFs, but also there's some nice advantages to links as well. So really whatever you prefer, or maybe what your clients prefer, that's configured here. The other thing too, since we're kind of talking about maybe subject lines, what I want to show you is if we open up project administration, we're going to quick go into specifications. And let's go ahead and find the job that I'm working on right now. So if we come on here, we're going to go into distribution. Here's another way where you can control some things. So at the top of our screen, what you see here is a default email address. So if I wanted to, I could actually, if I am the project manager of this project, I could put my name there. And let's say I have a project assistant that just kind of went through the simulation that we just went through together of signing reports and delivering them. Well, if that's my project assistant, not necessarily me, when we email reports off to clients, the system can populate my email address in there, even though it might be my project assistant that's actually emailing the report. So in other words, from a client's perspective, it's going to look and feel like it's coming from me. The other advantage with that is if they hit reply to that email that they received, it's going to go to my inbox. It's going to go right back to me because it looks like it came from me. So if they have any questions on anything, it's going to go right directly to me. So that's a nice, useful tool if you really are the project manager. You can also see here too, once again, you can configure the subject line for your outgoing reports at the project level. So if that differs from what we just showed you at the global level, you can manipulate the subject line for your reports on your job. It's a really nice, useful tool. And I believe that's a relatively new feature in the system here, where you can control the subject line, okay? So a couple other things now. What we're going to quick do is we're going to go back into delivery. So I kind of fast tracked myself here by going to a different tab, but let's rewind a little bit just so we can all get our bearings. So I'm going to quick do, we're going to open up delivery. We're going to go into my particular job right here. And the other thing that I want to mention, something that's relatively new in the system, is configurable file names. This can be very important because when you are emailing reports, you're basically sending off a file, right? It might be a link that leads to a file, but if it's an attachment, that file that the recipient is receiving, it's going to have a name. Now, if they're taking that report out of the email and maybe attaching it to a directory or maybe even just putting it on their desktop, that file name kind of has to be unique. So as an example, let's just go ahead and I'm going to click download on this. So this is a report sitting here in delivery. And yeah, it's delivered. Remember, delivery is our internal report repository. Doesn't matter how many times we email reports, the reports are going to sit here forever. But if I go ahead and click this, let's actually open this up here real quick. Just a second here. So let's go ahead and click this. So you can see, if we look at this here, let's get rid of that. So if you look at the top of our screen here, right at the top here, there's a date, there's a project number, a project name, and even the report type. That is the name of this file. That is configurable. You can configure that at the global level, and you can configure that at the project level. It's something that can actually be easily overlooked. So I want to talk about how that is generated, and you can do this for every single report type in the system. So that's what we're going to look at real quick. So I'm going to keep this open, but what we're going to do is we are going to go into administration, because this report that we're looking at right here, this is our compressive strength of concrete report. What we're going to do is we're going to go into administration, and I'm going to find that report. That's what I'm going to look for. So I'm going to find that report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into here, click reports, and we're going to go to report types. Now, because the compressive strength report, that's one of our, right now, our hard-coded reports, or what we like to call discrete. We're going to go ahead and click discrete, and I'm going to locate this. So here it is right here. And I'm going to click edit. Now, remember again, what we're doing here is we're addressing this at the global level. So when I click edit, now I'm going to be adjusting the report settings for this specific report type. So whenever you're adjusting the file names of reports, it's done at the report type level right here. So let's scroll on down. What we're going to do is we're going to come down here and we're going to look at these two fields. Now, this is also available for the do-it-yourself reports. So this would be any activity reports that you have, any LIMS reports that you have the same option. You would just need to open up the report designer template area and go ahead and click the report settings tab, and you're going to find these same things too. So the way that this works though is right here you can see you have a file name. This is what is going to display on your file when you generate this report type. Now the key one that I want to point out though, again, we've seen these dynamic placeholders before with double brackets, but the key one that I want to point out though is if you look at it right there where it says report description, that's actually down here. And the report description actually has a lot more than the file name. So we can populate whatever we want in the description here based on these available placeholders. So in this example, you can see that what's populated there is the sample date, the job number, and the project name, okay? So then, because this is the description, all of those fields right there, that's the description. Now let's move up to the file name, and you can see there that if I were to type, which actually is there, report description right here, right, this one right here, that's basically netting everything that's in this field, and it's going to populate that there, followed by the report title. So we have sample date, project number, project name. That's everything is going to be populated in the report description, followed by the title. Well, once again, let's take a look right here. Up at the top, you have a sample date, you have the job number, the job name, and the report title. So that is your file name. Now, where does that all come from though? That comes when you generate the report itself. So one more time, I'm going to stay here, but what I want to do is, give me just a second here, folks. What we're going to do is we're going to go into quality control. We're going to go into, let's just find that one report here real quick. Let's go to this job. Now I'm just going to generate a random report for this particular demo. We're not going to worry too much about a workflow or when I should be creating a report. Just want to get one up. So bear with me on that. But let's see here. Let's see if we can find one. All right, here's an example. So let's just create a report. So I'm going to click finalize. All right. So when we do this right here where it says description, look at that. Because it's configured properly, we have a sample date, we have the job number, and we also have the job name. That's exactly what is coming from, let's see, it's scrolling down. There's your configuration in the description, right? Description, sample date, project number, project name. That's what we get right here. So now, when we create this report, the system is now generating the file. And when we go into delivery, here's that report that I just created. It's got the date, it's got the name, or the job number and the name of the project all included in the description. So when it comes to the file, we're telling the system to include the description in the file along with the title of the report. So if we were to download this guy now, there it is right here. Let's just do a quick opening of it. And you can see right at the top, we get our file name. So that's very, very handy to make it easy on your clients. Now, where does this come into play even more? Well, number one, remember that you can do that for every single report type in the system. So your activity reports, your density reports. So real quick, if we wanted to do that for, say, our soil nuclear gauge one, if we click edit here, we have those same options, right? So there's the report description, the density test date. You could even put in maybe the technician who did the density test, and you can include that in the file name. That's probably very, very handy. So you can do that for every single report. Now, where does this really come into play again is if you have a client that demands a certain configuration or a certain format of the files that they receive, you can actually do this at the project level as well. So as an example, what we can do, I think I'm going to use the compressive strength test again, or this compressive strength report. So as an example, let's open this up. Let's go to specifications. We'll use my Shady Ridge Hospital job here. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to come on down and we're going to click reports/labels. So what you see here, this is actually, you're going to see a list right off the bat here. This is a list that's going to have every single report that's in your system. Now, I'm in our sandbox environment right now, so there's a lot of reports here. But what I want to just do is I'm going to quick run a search. Let's quick find this. Look up the compressive strength one. Let's see. Make it a little easy on myself here. There we go, concrete cast cylinder. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so if we look at this one now, though, let's click edit on this. Now we're inside of the Shady Ridge Hospital. However, what we can do is we can override the global file name configuration. So in this case, let's just say, let's just put in the office name. Do office name dash, what else we got? Let's do, I suppose we could do a report title again. You can look at the point across. More realistically, you probably have maybe, I don't know, maybe the cast date in there, or maybe even the test date. Actually, let's try that. Let's do lab test date here. I think I got that right. Let's see, yep, looks good. Let's do our double brackets. Okay, lab test date, but to get lab test date now into the file name, we want to come back up here, and now we want to type in report description. And if we tab off of it and it turns blue, that means we've done it correctly. So let's go ahead and hit save. Okay, so now this configuration differs compared to what we have at the global level. So let's try this again. Let's go give it a shot. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back into quality control where we manage our data but generate the reports. So let's head there. Let's go to Shady Ridge. Let's just grab, actually, let's see if we can find a better one. Let's go to this one. This one will do it. I think this is the same one I used last time. So let's click finalize report. And what we should see here is actually, you can see in the description now, this is a different date. This is the date that this was tested. So now when I finalize this, we're going to have a different configuration. So whether you want to put maybe the project number at the beginning of the file name or the project name or even the report type, that's up to you. It's fully configurable. And I recommend taking advantage of that. So let's download this one. Let's click OK. So now you can see we get a different file name. Now we have the the test date, followed by the office, and then the report type. That's a different file name than this one because we've configured that at the project level. So very, very useful, and you can make those clients that demand certain configurations, you can satisfy their request with that. So it's a very nice feature. Okay, so we're getting there. A couple more things to talk about, and then we can kind of wrap this up. One other thing that's fairly new to the system right now, I think within the last year or so, is how consolidated reports can be generated. If we look at this right here, I'm just going to stitch a couple of reports together and click Create Consolidated Report. What's new here is this little flag called Include Cover Sheet. I suppose that part's not new. This part's new, where you can include a distribution list. So if you have a distribution list that's been set up at the job level, you can actually source that and place that on top. Oops, I forgot to do this. Let's see here. There we go, that's better. So if you have a distribution list that's set up at the project level, you can create a job here, or excuse me, a report, and that distribution list will be sourced to kind of like a cover sheet. So it's almost like a transmittal in a way, where if you want to show on the actual deliverable that you can source the distribution list, it can be pulled here. And then the rest of your report is simply going to be all of the reports that you've stitched together. So nice new little feature here that you can source the distribution list. One other thing I just wanted to mention, this might not necessarily be for everybody. This is really more for our AgilePort users. But if you are using AgilePort, there's a really nice feature that I guess I just want to quick talk about. And it also has to do with similar workflows that we've already talked about. So the last thing that we were, last time we were here in delivery trying to manage reports, what we were focused on, right, is the delivery status. I talked about what's not delivered, what's not signed, right? The two big questions that I keep asking myself: what reports do I need to sign, and what reports do I need to deliver? Well, if you are using AgilePort to deliver your reports to a client, there's a similar workflow that you can actually implement. It's all about getting down to zero, except instead of using the delivered status, you might want to consider using these ones. Show if published in AgilePort, published and not published. It's kind of the same thing as delivered and not delivered. Again, it's when you are using AgilePort, you are publishing a report to a portal. So the same type of thing would kind of occur here. So actually, if you give me just a moment, let's do this. Let's hit clear on all of our filters. And again, what I might do is say, okay, show me all the reports that are not signed if I need to sign them again. But more importantly, if this is a job that I'm about to work with in AgilePort, what you can do is say, okay, show me all the reports that have not been published to AgilePort. And if you get results down here, it's basically telling you that these are still not exposed to your clients. Clients can't see these yet. So the same workflow comes into play though. We maintain our filters. We might select all of them, maybe a couple, but then you use this button here. It says change publish status. And when you do that, it happens very quickly and it disappeared. See how I lost some? Well, again, they didn't actually disappear. We just changed them to publish. So the moment you do that, those are the reports that are now available to your clients in the system. Now, what's really neat is when you do publish a report to AgilePort, there's another log, kind of like this email log, where if you email a report through Metafield, right, there's this little envelope that you can see, kind of track when something was emailed. It's your source of truth. Well, if you are publishing reports to AgilePort, if there is a report that's live, so to speak, or is published to the website, you're going to get this little globe icon, and it's going to tell you exactly who published it and when. But even better, you can actually track if your client has opened that up or not, because they're actually clicking on something inside of the portal. So where this really kind of comes into play is, one, if you have a client that says, hey, they never received the report, you'd actually be able to open this up and see if they really did or not. Maybe they clicked on it and they're telling you otherwise. You'd be able to track that down. The other thing is what happens if you accidentally publish a report to AgilePort that you didn't mean to? You could actually click this icon here and double check to make sure nobody has viewed it. And maybe they have, maybe they haven't. But at the same time, you'd be able to actually retract that. You can't do that with emails. So if we were to hit this report here, if I were to pretend this is a report I wasn't actually supposed to publish to AgilePort, I can simply check that and kind of be a little bit relieved and say, oh, nobody opened it up yet. Well, if I select that and simply hit change publish status again. And we can kind of bring it back from not being delivered to, so we can track that, it goes away. So now that report is no longer accessible by my client in the AgilePort site. So it's a really, really useful tool, but the whole workflow is the same as emailing reports. Instead of using the delivered status, just come down here and use your published one. But it's all about creating that workflow. The moment you hit 0 with the amount of records that you have showing here based on your filters, that's kind of your sign to tell you that you are done. You can kind of go about your day. Okay. So in summary, really the ultimate goal here is to really be aware of what's been signed, what hasn't been signed, what's been delivered, and what hasn't been delivered. You can review reports here in delivery, right? You can click a report like this and see the aesthetics of it. That's great. But the idea here, the ultimate goal is to hopefully that you've done your review in quality control, right? Quality control is your headquarters for the data review. So if you need to make changes to anything, you got to do it in quality control anyway. So you might as well do it there. Once you're in delivery, that's basically, hopefully at that point, once you have a report pushed off to delivery, for the most part, you really only have a couple of things left to do. Again, potentially sign it, probably deliver it, or maybe deliver it through AgilePort. And the easiest, most efficient way to track that is simply by using these two filters here as well. You might use some other ones to filter by different report types, but I think these two right here are going to be your favorite, right? You can even save them to come back later on, right? You can create a drop-down list of that as well. So, but it's all about creating workflows for yourself. Use your filters. The same can go for quality control, where if you're filtering for analyzed, when you change that to complete, the moment your records hit 0, they don't actually disappear. They're probably just hidden by a filter, but that's the idea. So I hope you found some value in today's session. Of course, if you have any specific questions on anything, reach out to us at our support portal, contact your solutions consultant. We can help you out with some more detail. But I appreciate you listening. And again, hope you found some value and thank you for your time. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you.